What's going on, YouTube? We're back at it for another video, and today we'll be doing the Limgrave Guide Part 1. Now, it's going to be a long one. We've got more than a few things to cover with this one, but we're going to be starting off at the first step, beginning for all beginnings. But we've got more than a few things to cover, so let's get straight into it. Now, from that first step, obviously we'll need to talk to the White Masked Man. He'll be a part of a side quest line later on that we'll be covering a little bit inside of the Lunaria Lakes, but right after that, we obviously have that Tree Sentinel, which is the first boss that we'll encounter within this game. Obviously, if you've just started this game, I would highly suggest just running past this guy. Don't aggro him, don't try to deal with him. But it feels nice to come back through that New Game Plus and really get some payback. And if you are stubborn enough to actually fight that guy at the very beginning and want to keep dying over and over until you finally get it, you will be rewarded with a solid halberd at the very beginning of the game. But right past that, we'll have a church up the road. We'll need to grab up the Lost Grace over there, head and talk to the guy, or merchant over here. He's got a couple of cookbooks on him. You'll definitely want to buy those up at Cracked Pot as well. And over to the left, we'll find the blacksmithing station, where we'll also find our first smithing stone at level 1. Just able to automatically upgrade whatever weapon we're available to, or is available to us at that time. Would probably save it for something that's more worth your while, but at the same time, if you just want a little extra power at the straight beginning, that's one way to do it. But from that point, we'll start heading over to the left. We'll actually have a dungeon over here that we'll need to go through. What's it? Stormfoot CATACOMBS? Trying to remember exactly what was in here. A whole lot of those GLOVEWORTs. I'm not even sure at this point. A couple of them are level 1, so if you're looking to find some of those just to level up some of those summons, you just need that level 1 in order to further progress some of those. Definitely, Limgrave is going to be that perfect spot to really get all those beginning pieces for anything that you're trying to craft and upgrade at the very, or at some later point if you're going through New Game Plus, or possibly just trying to maximize as much as possible. We'll also get one of those, the calling pallets. Can't remember what it was, but it says hello. Very creepy voice, essentially. Now, right here, you'll notice, I kind of just kept going on top of this, thinking that there was a door somewhere up there, or illusionary wall, I should say. Turns out there's not, so I wasted a good bit of time there, and do be mindful of your health. This has happened more than a few times. New Game Plus, somehow still dying to some of these common things. But back here, do be mindful of those imps. They can still be extremely frustrating, even in the New Game Plus. If you're higher leveled, you've kind of gotten up to a spot where you feel pretty comfortable. But just back behind that, we're going to have that ladder, another GLOVEWORT over on our left, and just back here in this other room, we'll also have another GLOVEWORT with a couple of those imps trying to get that sneak attack on us. Do be aware of that. That bleed that they deal is still as frustrating as it was in the first first playthrough, essentially. But inside here, we'll also grab up another summons. Now, from that point, we'll need to jump out over to the right onto the ledge down below. So this is where we'll get the lever in order to open up the boss room. And there'll be another one of those GLOVEWORTs right next to it. Plenty of these level 1s. If you're looking to stock up on that and trying to get a bunch of these summons leveled up, definitely a good spot to go back to. Now inside here, one of those old cat demons every single time, even with that greatsword all the way leveled up. They still don't stagger that easy, and still very frustrating to deal with. But we'll get another summons off of that once we kill that. Then we'll be exiting this dungeon. That'll be it for this one. Then we'll be heading out along the left path again. We'll have more than a few of these little common type enemies over here. And I believe we'll be heading into a cave this time. Still essentially another dungeon, but it'll be over here on the left as we're hugging that wall. Drop down in here, grab that Lost Grace up. And then we'll be heading into the wolf's den, essentially. There'll be more than a few wolves down here. Not exactly all that frustrating anymore, since we are, I'm able to essentially one-shot them at this point. But there are a few times with the slow swing of that greatsword. If I catch them off by just a small hair, they can still get you in that stun lock. That's going to be extremely irritating. But in this next room, not exactly the hardest boss. Definitely was a bit harder the first time I came through here, but we will get that FLAMEDRAKE talisman, which will further increase our defenses against those flame attacks, essentially. Don't know how useful that would be at the very beginning, but it's something to definitely hang on to for once you finally make it over to the Volcano Manor. But just past that, as we're hugging that left wall, we'll come upon these ruin areas with a bunch of knights in it. A couple of these carriages will have weapons in the back of them, like this greatsword right here. And over to our left, we'll need to grab up that Lost Grace. If you're at the beginning of the game, obviously you'll meet up with, I forget the woman's name, but the one with one eye that gives us the horse and something else I can't remember. But over off to the left in that other carriage, we'll have a flail that we'll be able to pick up that does cause some bleed, if I remember correctly. Should be an interesting weapon to use. Might try to use some of these lower level weapons from this first area in some of my PvP builds that I'll be doing later on. Should make for some interesting content, or just a good bit of fun overall. But inside here we'll find what essentially is the first Ash of War that we'll be able to grab up down inside of that ruins dungeon, or whatever you'd like to call those little small walkways down. Now from that point, we'll need to head along the main path until we hit this Lost Grace, grab that one up, and then start heading along the path. I have made sure to kind of show the map location in certain moments. I know I had, I believe, just one person talking about that and or commented on a previous video. But as we head along that main path, we'll find a bush over here that actually speaks to us. Can't remember the name of this guy for the life of me, but we'll call him Dobby for right now. You'll want to start this off, as we'll meet up with him later on when I get to part 2 of the Limgrave guide. He'll progress further later on for a different type of side quest that can help us with tailoring our outfits. But from that point, we'll start heading along over to the left side of this cliff face, just heading up over here and keep kind of riding this cliff face all the way left. We won't be taking that whirlpool up. We'll be covering that a little bit later on in or I believe that'll actually be a part of the part 2 guide, as we'll be starting to head south here in a bit and cover this middle ground as we go through. Now from this point over here on our left, we're going to find another one of those Lost Graces, and then we'll be able to jump up on top of this down structure over here. We'll need to jump over on the one on our right, essentially. Now we will need to be on horseback for this one, as the jump's going to be far too much for our little legs. But as we jump up on top of here, there should be a scarab as soon as we get up on top, which will explode, so do be aware of that. But we'll get a somber smithing stone level 1 from that, and then we'll be able to head over to a cabin over here that has a Lost Grace and a painting for us to grab up as well. Now this painting will be will spawn a ghost after we've actually found it, and there will also be a smithing stone off to our left. We'll be finding that painting location later in the guide. Now from this point, kind of do I'm starting to do a little twirl here, trying to make sure I keep everybody on track with where I'm trying to go. Or make it as seamless as possible, I should say. And now we'll essentially head back across. I'm pretty much taking in the views at this point, trying to see if there's anything I missed over here. Good bit of just kind of taking in the view at this moment. Kind of taking in that beauty. But essentially what we'll be doing is kind of making a circle around this area, as I already know this is going to be across the bridge that we'll be going across here in a moment. But we'll double back to that broken down structure that we came across on, and then start heading over to the left, cover a bit more of the area before we head into that next one just yet. Now there's a lot of things about the New Game Plus that are a bit easier, but these enemy types right here are still as frustrating as the first time through. I don't know what it is about these guys, but they seem to be able to still dish out some very serious damage, and just absolutely irritating. But from that point, we'll start heading towards the main path and closer towards that bridge, as we're going to find a scarab just in front of it over here on our left before we cross over. I'm trying to remember what the scarab was going to give. There'll be a couple of enemies next to him. Don't necessarily have to deal with them, but we will be getting, there it is, an Ash of War from that. And then across the bridge over to our right, we'll have another one of those smithing stone level 1s, another one of those horseback riders. Do be mindful of them, they can knock you down quite easily. But from that point, we'll start heading over to the left. Got our location right here. A couple of enemies along the road, but nothing too difficult to really take down. Now from that point, trying to remember where we head off to. We're going to head along that left edge, and we're going to meet back up into the area, essentially where we were just at with the broken down house. Start heading back down, and then from this point, we're not going to take the road just yet. That'll be a part of part 2, but we'll start heading along this left edge over here, and we'll meet up with another one of those carriages, I should say, that's being towed by these 2 trolls. I don't know if you necessarily have to defeat both of them. You know, I just try to make quick work of any enemy that may be interfering with me trying to get my loot. I'll take any bit of that down. But in the back of this carriage, we're going to be able to find another piece of loot after we've taken down more than a few of these enemies that are, I guess, safeguarding it and making sure it makes it to its destination. Now, we will be getting a GREATAXE out of that. Something that would be solid for some of those first playthroughs. Something going for a strength build. But over here to our left, we will have the Waypoint runes. Now, you don't necessarily have to take out all of these plants. It's not much to really gain from it other than some crafting material and I believe a level 1 golden rune just beneath it. But like I said, I enjoy the game. I enjoy getting that payback on some of these enemies that really gave me a troublesome time the first time through, so I make sure to really dish it out this next, or the second playthrough essentially. But down here is where we'll find a Pumpkinhead fight. Not exactly one of the hardest bosses in the game, but he can still be irritating, and he does smash that head down a lot. And that thing can get you stun locked, as you'll notice, even with a higher level right now. That thing can still keep me bashed away. But from that point, we'll unlock a Lost Grace after we finish him off, and we'll be able to unlock the SELLEN teacher, I should say. And it'll also start off a side quest line if you'd like to check out this side quest line and see this one to fruition. I've also got a guide on that in the channel. If you'd like to check that out, I'll have it linked down in the description below. But we'll need to get through all of hers, except her teachings, and if you're a sorcerer, obviously this is going to be one of the first locations where you can start buying up some of those additional sorceries. Now from that point, we'll start heading over to the left. You'll notice there'll be a health scarab over here. You know, never can really not take the opportunity to grab that up, just fill up some of those health pots, but there'll also be a graveyard over there on the left. We'll keep heading over along this left cliffside until we reach these stone ruins over here. And over here on our left, we'll have a Starlight Shard. And just behind us, we're actually going to find a scroll over on top of this building being guarded by a couple of sorcerers and some enemies over here. Of the Lindale Knights, I suppose. And that scroll, we can take that back to SELLEN and actually learn some new sorceries from that scroll. Find many of those scattered across the lands if you've already been through the game. But more than a few enemies over here, so if you need some additional runes, trying to get some of those levels up, some easy pickings over here. Not exactly the greatest pile of runes to be gained off of it, but every little bit counts. Now from that point, we'll start heading over to the left along that main path, kind of doubling back, and we'll notice over on our right there's going to be a Lost Grace, kind of tucked away behind some trees in between these rocks over here. Over on our right, I have a couple of enemies, but over here on our left, this is going to be the Bloodhound Everjail, I believe is what it's called. Now with this is where we get the Bloodhound Fang, and I still swear by that weapon. Took me all the way through that first playthrough. I know I've been using this greatsword quite a bit after that, but you can see how quick of work you can make most people with this greatsword. I am loving every minute of it. We'll be doing a PvP build with this weapon a little bit later on. Now from that point, we can jump down from the ledge. We'll be heading back towards that main road area, then kind of circling back around the left side. There'll be a couple of items so we can get back here. More than a few monkeys to deal with back here as well, but monkeys aren't the hardest thing to deal with. But we will find a large club over here. If you're a wretch like me, that's definitely an upgrade for you, unless you just don't have the strength yet in order to wield it, which can be a problematic experience. But hey, wretch life is the wretch life. Sometimes it's a struggle. And in a lot of ways that has made my experience with the game that much better. Having to claw my way all the way back up, and now finally at that point where I'm feeling like I can take on just about anything in this game. It's a nice feeling. But from that point, we'll start heading back down, a little bit deeper down to the left. A couple of rune fragments down here. And over here to the left, we'll have a couple of those forget the name of it, but those lilies for a bit of crafting material. If you're looking for some of those locations where those spawn in a little bit of an abundance, this is going to be one of them. Now from that point, we'll start doubling back to where we came from, kind of heading along this left cliffside over here. Goodness. But over here we'll find another area that we can dip down into. A couple of monkeys to deal with down here, but we'll also find a little bit of those, I believe those crab eggs, bit of crafting material. Not much else to be found down here other than a few more of those monkeys to deal with. But we'll head back up, keep heading along that left side of the cliffside. I believe coming up here shortly, we should be coming up on another Lost Grace here in a moment. Yep, there it is, boom, over here on the left side. Now just next to this is going to be a broken down structure over here, and underneath here is going to be Shabriri, I believe his name was. Essentially, this does begin a sort of side quest line that we will be able to gain some items from this. This is going to be the starting point for him, and we will progress into the second portion of this side quest as well, meeting up with him again later on. But I'll be doing a full guide on him in a later video as well. We won't be going through the full fruition of his side quest through this, but that's going to be the beginning point. And just above him on that structure will be another bit of that crafting material. Now from this point, we'll start keep going along that left side, and we'll start to get to the lake over here on the right. It's going to be another gold rune over here with more than a few bats to deal with. I'm telling you what, New Game Plus bats are still as frustrating as they were the first time through, and goodness, as a melee player, anything that's flying is, especially with the greatsword and how slow it swings, I cannot explain my irritation enough with those bats. You'll see why a bit later on. But over here we've got a bunch of the crucified screaming. I never heard this the first time, but all these guys are screaming as you come over here. A bit reminiscent of those ancient Emperor Nero parties over in Rome, if you understand the darker history of Rome. But over here down below them is going to be another one of those smithing stone level 1s. Now it looks like something you could jump into. Don't. Alright, every troll out there is trying to ride on the ground for everybody to jump over to their death. We've had enough death in this game. Now once we push into just about the middle of the lake area, there's going to be one of the first dragons spawning in this moment. Definitely a really nice cinematic boss fight, and in my opinion this was definitely one of those moments that really sold me on the game at the very beginning. I couldn't believe how well this was done, in my opinion. Just one of the best dragon fights in the game besides the Dragon Lord himself. The rest of them, you could be in smaller areas. The Frost Dragon over in the mountaintops of the Giants is pretty nice, but this one, it really captures you in with just the scenario of that thing coming down, breaking down the trees, shooting the flames across. It's just a beautiful boss fight right there that really captures the essence of what is great about Elden Ring. But from that point, after we defeat him, we'll be grabbing up that dragon heart, and we'll be pushing along this left cliffside until we hit this corner over here, which is going to be another dungeon down here that we'll need to explore. And we will have the Limgrave tunnels. I always want to call it Limgrave. I have to fight myself every single time. I mean, since the beginning of the game, I've been calling it Limgrave. Don't know why my brain thinks there's an E in there, but there's not. There's not. But from that point, we'll have more than a few of those smithing stones level 1 that'll be hanging on the walls. Trust me, it looks like I'm missing a couple of them, but we'll be doubling back to grab those here in a moment, just taking out some of those crystal enemies. And you'll notice, I believe if you have a high enough discovery rating, some of these guys will also drop smithing stone level 1s as a lootable item from their body. So that could be one of those spots if you're really trying to look for some of those, if you've already been through this area and possibly need more of those smithing stone level 1s, boost up that discovery rating, hack up some of these crystal miners. More than likely a couple of them will be dropping some of those smithing stone level 1s. As you'll notice here in a moment, I actually have one of these guys drop one of the smithing stone level 1s on his body. Now we'll find another smithing stone level 1 down here in the back of this cavern, and then we'll be doubling back over to where that lift is that we just saw. Now from this point, you'll have noticed that there was a path that we could take. I've slowed it down here so nobody misses this when we're fast forwarding, but we'll be able to jump off, and this is actually going to be the location of the boss fight itself. We'll have a few more of those crystal miners to deal with down here. Goodness. It does take quite a bit to actually stagger them, but lucky enough that greatsword is still making quick work of these guys. Now just back there was doubling up on my own words. That was going to be one of the first guys that I noticed, that these guys will drop those smithing stone level 1s. But if we jump down here, we'll also find another golden rune and somber smithing stone level 1 if we jump along those paths over there. Lucky enough, me and rolling, and sometimes, you know, you fall to your death. Other times, you find a decent little secret spot to grab up some nice loot from. But over before the boss fight, there's going to be a smithing stone over on our right. And I believe this is going to be one of the giant... Oh, this is the... what is it? Stone Dagger Troll. He's still a bit frustrating to deal with, even in that higher leveled state. But at the same time, as long as you can get underneath this guy, avoid some of his stomps, you should be able to make quick work of this guy. Deal some pretty decent damage to him. Just do be sure to avoid those stomps at all costs. But from this, we'll get a talisman that further enhances our roars and what is that? Breaths attacks. That's going to be some of those Ash of War type of abilities, where similar to what the bears can do, or the larger bears and those trolls can do, where they shout at you. Feels almost reminiscent of Skyrim. But as soon as we portal back to the front of that entrance, we'll need to take that lift down and then go back for that lift that we took down, and then jumped halfway across, or halfway down over into that boss area, as there's still a few more items that we'll need to grab up at the bottom of that secondary lift. Now you'll notice that there is going to be one spot that we can jump on the lift at the very beginning. We'll need to hit that golden rune, or essentially jump up to that second location, and then head back in towards that secondary tunnel, or secondary lift, I should say. Now once we get to this lift, we'll be taking it all the way down this time, and then heading on down deeper into the Limgrave tunnel. Now down here we'll find a shack that's going to have one of those consumable items that we'll be able to grab up, and I believe there's going to be 2 smithing stones that we'll be able to grab down here, and a couple of those crystal miners. But over here on our right is going to be that first smithing stone, level 1 right there, and over to our left behind the shack we're going to find that next smithing stone. Now from this point, pretty much done with this area. Kind of irritated there wasn't too many of the illusionary walls inside of a lot of these beginning caves in this Limgrave area. I was hoping there'd be a bit more to the secrets, but at the same time, there was that secret boss fight that was midway up the lift. Could be one of those frustrating moments that a lot of people could miss, especially early on when you don't really know about those spots that could be hidden like that. But you'll notice I'm hitting pretty much every wall that looks like it could be illusionary, just finding nothing out of it. But from that point, we'll be doubling back outside of the or out back into the lake area. A couple more things that we need to grab up out here and off to our left after we've, or I believe there's actually going to be some ruins on our right that we'll need to head over to. That's correct. Now over here, there's going to be 2 different dungeon type entrances. One of them is going to be possibly detrimental for you, and the other one is going to be a somewhat of a delight. It's going to have some nice loot items in it. Now from this point, we won't take the one on our right just yet. We'll grab up that golden rune. We'll need to head over to the right of that first stairway down, as we won't jump into that just yet. But over here, it's going to be one. This is going to be the one that actually gives us some loot. Thank goodness. And we'll be getting a twin blade out of this. Not exactly the greatest weapon, but something that could perk up some of that damage at the very beginning. If you're definitely trying to make one of those new games, trying out a different type of build, it's going to be something that could help out. But over here in this broken down tower area, we're going to find another one of those stone sword keys, and then we'll be heading back to that staircase that we found at the very beginning. Now inside of here, there's going to be a chest down here after we've dealt with more than a few of those rats down here. Still frustrating as ever. But back here, we'll open up this doorway, and once we open up this chest, it will actually portal us to the Celia Crystal Tunnel. Now, I got trapped in this the first time. I thought to myself, oh no, there is a chest next to us that there is some, that has some lootable item, or loot inside of it. Didn't grab it up in this playthrough, but you can find that over in my Khalid guide if you'd like to check that one out. Essentially, once we get in here, though, we'll need to double back towards the entrance of it. Set it to Lost Grace. I thought you could just set it to Lost Grace and then be able to portal out, but it turns out we're going to need to head out either outside of it, but best bet, you want to grab up that summons over on our left and hit this Lost Grace over here. Gives you a bit of a better starting point when it comes to Khalid if you're just trying to fast forward yourself all the way to getting to the Red Main Castle. Now, for whatever reason, One-Eyed Girl actually showed up at this Lost Grace for me and then invited me back to the round table. But from this point, we'll be at the round table, but we'll be heading back to that Lost Grace that we first found before we headed off with that dragon. And then from that location, you'll notice the ruins are on our left. We'll just keep heading straight past that. Over here, there's going to be a lot of these devil dags over here, just putting out a gas storm unlike any other. And you don't necessarily have to fight all of them, but I mean, if it hurts me, trust me, I'm gonna get my revenge on that. But there'll be some crafting material just behind them that you'll be able to grab up. And from this point, we'll need to head over underneath the bridge that we crossed in order to get to the secondary area. As over here, there's going to be more than a few things that we need to deal with, and we'll be meeting up with patches for the first time. Now, frustrating. Oh, goodness, those skeletons. Still irritates me. Now, I did find out from the comments down below that apparently if you're using some type of holy weapon, that you don't have to finish them off while they're laying down on the ground. But as we progress through this little canal area, there will be a summons moment. This will be something that does progress the Shabriri side quest line, but we'll also get a pretty nice dagger out of defeating this guy. And the first time you kill him, you will be getting, I believe, some type of furling. I can't remember the name of it, the finger thing. But over to the left, we're actually going to have a cave down here. This is going to be the Murkwater Cave. And down here, we'll be meeting up with patches for the first time. Now, there's a couple of, I guess you could call them bandits sleeping down here. You'll need to make quick work of them. And there'll be a chest just behind them that will actually have a mushroom. Very frustrating. Cannot say how irritating it is every time I find a mushroom. I can't even remember what mushrooms are used for when it comes to crafting, but they seem to be laying all over the place inside of chests out here. Now, we'll get some nice clothing to wear out there, or cloth clothing in case you're not feeling like being naked, but patches will drop down here. Now, you can choose to kill him here, but especially with this recent patch that's just come out, they've further extended the patch's side quest line, so I'd highly suggest leaving him alive. Forgive and forget on this one. He's going to come back more than a few times and irritate us and be a serious pain. But there are some items that you can gather from him later on, as well as him being a vendor later on as well, as he'll describe when you talk to him in that first position as you forgive and forget. Now over here, just further down that canal, we'll find Shabriri again. He'll talk to us about how we've killed that one guy and how he's against the Order of Moog, or the Moog Dynasty, essentially. Kind of seems fitting, especially with the finger thing. Can't remember. Specifically, it's something to do with those two almost like factions waging war, as it's the Frenzied Flame versus the Moog Dynasty of Blood. But all the way at the end of this canal down here, we're going to have another one of those dungeons where we'll be facing off with what I like to call the God of War boss inside of this game. You'll know what I mean as soon as we get in here. But as soon as we come in, there's going to be another one of those imps on the left, another one hanging from the wall. Be aware of that. They can still deal some massive damage down here, but at the same time, we'll have two of those gloveworts to be found down here. There will be a trap in the middle of the hallway, so do be aware of that. You don't want to get stuck in or get arrowed from behind, but just down there's going to be the lever to open up the boss room. Just past here, we're going to have another couple of those imps to deal with, and another glovewort to pick up. Now, we'll be able to get into the boss room, which I like to call the God of War boss, since he's dual-wielding and chained to these massive hammers. Now, if you've got something that has that high stagger power like this greatsword, you're going to be making quick work of this guy. But funny enough, on my second or New Game Plus, ended up only getting a summons from him. The first time around, I did actually get the hammer that he was wielding as well. Kind of surprised he didn't drop it again for the New Game Plus, but from that point, we'll need to head back to that Lost Grace location across the lake itself. And then from this point, we'll be heading off over to the right. Now, for whatever reason, there we go. Seemed like the video was lagging there for a moment. Hopefully that's not carried over. Now, we'll have to deal with one of those horsemen as we come by, but we'll be heading along the right side of this lake, essentially, at this point. Now, we're going to come up on a couple of crabs to deal with over here. You know how frustrating those crabs can be. Even on that New Game Plus, higher leveled up, got that solid weapon with you. They're going to be a nuisance. But over in between both of them is actually going to be a scarab that we'll be able to get another Ash of War out of. And like I said before, those crabs can be a frustrating mess, but lucky enough we're able to take them out with pretty much one shot with that greatsword. Now we'll get back on horseback and we'll start heading back up the hill. This time we'll be progressing into the southern portion of Limgrave. We'll be heading along the main path all the way down from this point. We'll be crossing a rather large bridge down here that's going to be guarded by some of those Lindell Knights. So do be aware of that, and there is a, forgetting the name of it, Hydralisk? Basilisks? No, I can't remember the name of it every time. It escapes me. But over on the left-hand side, we will have another one of those smithing stones. And then more than a few of those Lindell Knights to deal with. But for whatever reason, they somehow are able to take that hit with the shield. Still not be able to get staggered, but as soon as it touches their flesh, instant death. Now, over on the right-hand side, we will have another one of those Lost Grace to grab up, and there'll be something that we'll need to jump over to on the right-hand side, I believe. I could be wrong. Correct, yeah. It's one of those moments you couldn't do that. Now, you'll want to exhaust the dialogue with this blind woman on the side of the road, as it will progress a certain storyline or side quest line going forward as we get to the castle at the end of this road. Now, this is me coming back. You'll understand why I'm naked a bit later on in the footage, or here coming up soon, but exhaust her dialogue. Make sure that you get the letter that you'll need to deliver to her father that is at the castle that we'll be ending up at the end of this path. Now, there's going to be a good bit of those dogs, a couple of Lindell Knights, or no, I believe it's just monkeys over here, and this giant troll. You don't necessarily have to take them out, but again, it's a good time to get some of that payback in New Game Plus and really just finish them off without having to, or having any real worries from it. But over on our left, we will have another one of those downed carriages. There'll be an item in the back of it, which is going to be the Morning Star. Not a bad weapon, does have some bleed damage to it. Would be an interesting PvP weapon, something to dual wield with. But over here is going to be some of those Neanderthal monkeys. Get rid of them, make quick work of them. Also have another smithing stone, I believe was that level 3. I can't remember precisely. But over here on our left, it's just going to be a bunch of rune fragments. But just in front of us, another one of those scarabs. I believe this one. Another Ash of War specific to the bowmans. Now from that point, we'll head over to the left. Or technically we took a right, but left-hand side, I suppose. We'll be going along this right cliffside right here. Over to our left, a couple more of the monkeys, I believe that is. No, it's going to be a pack of dogs. Sometimes they almost look the same. Pretty low to the ground. But over here on our left, we will have another of those Lost Graces. Goodness, getting a little bit tongue-tied. Tongue-tied right there. How you can hear it. But from that point, we'll start heading a little bit over to our right, as there's going to be a tower that we'll need to climb up to. Hopefully I'll get the name of what that giant crossbows was, since we will be getting a specific weapon that is similar to that, but a handheld version. Now over here there will be some of those Lindell Knights guarding it. Kind of the weaker ones, obviously, but once we get up to the top, there'll be another one that is on one of those Hydralisks, I believe that's the name, Hydralisk. Let's see, we'll get the... What did that say? My goodness, the text is so small on this Adobe player. You know, you have a 24-inch monitor. It's much smaller. I mean, technically looking at a 5-inch screen on this 24-inch monitor every time I'm looking at the playback. So some of these names just kind of get blended in with the pixels. But from that point, we'll head over to the left side. We'll have another, I believe this stone sword key, yes. And back down here, we will also have another one of, we'll find a Lost Grace down here after we come through this, I don't even know what to call it. It seems like somebody's been using that sling rock ability all over the place down here. Mages have been getting a bit crazy these days. Or sorcerers, I should say. But over here on the right-hand side, we'll have another Lost Grace, and we will have another one of those magical rises on the right side. But before we head over to that, over on the right-hand side, or the edge of the map, essentially, from this southern Limgrave point, we will have another one of those dungeons to crawl down into. The Impaler's Catacombs. I'm trying to remember. There's so many dungeons inside of Limgrave, and they do kind of almost blend together. A lot of them do have these gargoyle imps inside of them. Not a whole lot of secrets to them, but a few of them do have some unique items that'll be beneficial for some of those starting players, or some of those players trying to level up some of those new summons. Obviously, we've got another GLOVEWORT over here. I definitely slowed that one a bit too much down, but besides the point, we'll have another GLOVEWORT over there on the left. Inside of here, we're going to get sneak attacked. I can't remember which way it is, but one of those imps is hiding around the corner. And in this next room, another one of those moments where you want to keep an eye on your health bar. You know, you think you're overpowered in that new game plus, but you can still die very easily. This is Elden Ring. Quite frustrating. But essentially what you want to do is run over to that left portion, get into that hidey hole, let it go all the way down, then run all the way back. That way we can get up underneath that lift itself in order to make our way through to get another one of those plates, speaking plates. There'll be more than a few of those GLOVEWORT inside of here, and a lot of those zombies as well. But essentially, we're making our way all the way until we get that lever to open up the boss. Now, more than a few of those undead guys, they're just crawling up out of the mud water down here. Who knows how long they've been down there. You know, they may just be looking for a hug right now. It may look like they're attacking me, but they're blind and senseless. Who knows? But from that point, we'll head up the ladder. We'll be able to hit that boss lever. And then from this point, we'll have another sneak attack from one of those. Sneak attack. Goodness. Keep getting mixed up with it. But from that point, at the other end of that, or that window, we'll have, yet again, another one of those cat bosses. But this time, we'll have a couple of the imps to deal with. Can make it a bit more frustrating. Trust me, look at that. Goodness, I remember the first time coming through here, it was just as frustrating as it is right now. Now, lucky enough, we were able to make quick work of that cat warrior, but as soon as we kill him, if we haven't finished off the other two, we will also get a summons from it, but the imps will also disappear at the same point. Now, from that point, we'll be able to exit out of there and start heading back over to the left, which is where this rise is going to be. Now, I'll tell you right now, I spent far too much time over here. On the left-hand side, we will have another one of those Starlight shards. But over here, there is going to be an invisible turtle in this water, but you will have to go to the front of the rise, and there will be a pack of dogs that you'll need to deal with, or wolves, I should say. They're not tamed. But we'll need to check that secret gargoyle statue that tells us how to get into the rise. We'll have one invisible right there. The other two are going to be visible, but I will tell you right now, it took me a bit too long to find these other two, even though I'd already been through it. It was so long ago, essentially, in the hours and hours at the beginning. But right in front of the staircase, down the main path, there's going to be one, and just over to the left of the staircase itself, in the bushes, is going to be the last turtle that we'll need to hit, or spectral animal. Then we'll be able to get up inside of here. Now, if you've already been through this area in the first playthrough, you're on New Game Plus, coming back to this location, I'll let you know right now, you don't have to come back. It's going to be a memory stone that you'll get out of the chest, but if you're in New Game Plus, already been here, it's just going to be an empty chest for you. Would have liked to have seen something like some type of greater rune inside of there, something along those lines, just to fill the place if you've already grabbed it up, but I suppose, you can't have infinite spells inside of here, getting those memory stones. Now, hey, Miss Call Me Call, they're going by so quick, and you'll see here in a moment there's going to be a lot more subscriptions that'll be happening. But we'll head along this left side over here. Grab up that, oh goodness, grab up that Lost Grace, and we'll also have a vendor over here that'll have a couple items that we should buy up, which is going to be those smithing stones. Do try to grab them up at the same time. Clutch rounds, hey, appreciate it, man. Always in the stream. Brad Van Hooser, 1, hey, appreciate it. T. Joseph, appreciate it. GW, 542, appreciate it. Jinxed subs, appreciate it. You know, these names are about to start coming up quite a bit. Just had to put my thanks on there. At this point, you know, I was a bit flabbergasted. Vegeta, greatly appreciated, man. He came in, dropped 100 subs into the stream. You know, I can't thank him enough for this. It's moments like these that really push me to continue to make this content and further make more for this and just continue on it. As I've already been doing. You know, even without it, I would continue to do it, but this just makes it even more worthwhile. And, you know, I hope this doesn't bother too many people. Hopefully it doesn't take up too much of the screen for you, but this will be happening for quite a bit of time. I didn't think about this while I was going through, but there's going to be 100 names popping up, and I know some of these are some of the new followers from my Elden Ring content, and I greatly appreciate it, you guys. Everybody down in the comments, you know, I thought I'd take this moment to really give a thanks to you guys and thanks to Vegeta again for coming in and dropping that amount. It's unreal. It's definitely not needed. Your viewership is all that's necessary, but it is greatly appreciated. But like I said before, this will be going on for quite a bit of time, but not for the rest of the entire footage, luckily. So I know it does take up a bit of the screen, and I know there's guaranteed to be somebody down in the comments that's like, oh, this is extremely irritating, frustrating, and you probably just should have, waited until it was done. But no, I mean, on my screen when I'm playing the gameplay, I don't even notice this, and I didn't think about it at the time. So hopefully it's not too much of a irritation, but greatly appreciate everybody that's come to follow, come to check out the content, left some comments down below. It's greatly appreciated. But at this point, we're finally at the castle itself. There'll be one item over here on the left that we'll be able to grab up, which is going to be, I believe, just a smaller golden rune over here. And then we'll be able to head up inside of the castle. Pretty short castle, not too many secrets to it, but there is one nice little boss fight that we have at the end of it, which will give us a very unique weapon that's another homage to that Game of Thrones theme from, what is his name, George R. Martin. At the very front of it, though, we will have that Lost Grace to grab up and then taking a lift on up. Goodness. I know quite a lot of names. I appreciate everybody coming by. Now, inside of here, we're going to have more than a few of those Neanderthal monkeys, and some of them flying. Going to be a frustrating time to deal with, especially if this is your first time coming through, but this is definitely one of those zones that I feel, if you just started the game, this is kind of the right path that you need to take in order to get some of those levels up, get some different weaponry at hand for you, and just kind of gear you to the point where you're ready for that Morgoth fight. Maggot, I can't remember his name at this point. But instead of just going for old Maggot himself, I'd highly suggest coming down here, doing the southern portion of Limgrave, getting some of these runes, getting your levels up, getting a decent experience with a lot of the common enemies before just throwing yourself into that painstaking boss fight. But from that point, we'll head up the pile of, I believe that was bodies. Can't remember specifically, but we'll head over to the right, and there's going to be a chest inside of here that's going to give us a claymore. Pretty decent weapon, but not something that's going to give us that bleed damage, but could be something of an upgrade for some of those players that are just first coming through. Now, beyond that point, we'll have a ladder out here on the right side that's going to lead us on top of the castle itself. Essentially, this top portion is the majority of the castle itself before we get to the back end of it. Now, over on our left side, you're going to notice there's a bit of those, I don't even believe these are Lindell soldiers, even though they look very similar to it. But they're going to be, I guess, the castle itself's army, fighting off with some of those Neanderthal monkeys that have tried to overthrow this area. Now, over on our left-hand side, we will have another one of those finger thingies. And then, over back here, another couple of those Neanderthal monkeys to deal with, and decent little torch if you needed something. If you haven't gotten that hip lantern just yet, that could be useful for some of those darker caves down there that you may need that for. Just kind of lighten the way for you instead of just rolling through the absolute darkness. Another troll trying to tell me, oh, if only there was an item here. And at this point, this is when Vegeta decided to drop another 50 onto the stream. Hey, greatly appreciated again, Vegeta. Can't thank you enough. It's unreal. You definitely don't have to do this, and nobody should feel the need to have to subscribe. Trust me, I have to state this. You know, your viewership is all that's necessary, and even just your views on YouTube is greatly appreciated. I hope this content has helped you, and hopefully in the future I can help you with more content or games in the future as well. But we will need to double back, as there's going to be a ladder just off. Kind of lost myself there for a moment. Hopefully you've been able to kind of process through as we've been going through the footage. But essentially we're back down to the lower section, just beyond where that pile of bodies was. There's going to be that pumpkin head down there and one smithing stone that we'll need to grab up, and that'll be everything from the ground floor that we'll need to grab up. Now over on our right side is the spot that we'll need to jump down over to. There's going to be a ladder that we'll be able to head down. And down this path, I believe we've got another smithing stone at the end of it. Can't remember for certain, but I believe that's what it was. Correct. We're going to have another one of those. I believe that's smithing stones 2 right there. Now from that point, we'll double back, head up to that ladder now. There is another ladder over on our left-hand side. It's a little bit hidden in a way next to that barrel, so do be on the lookout for that. Now this is a spot that we can jump over, but not just yet, as there's going to be that father of that blind woman up here that we'll need to talk to and deliver that letter to. And he's going to be right up here. Now you can make the choice to kill this guy, and you will get a halberd out of him, or halberd. But I don't know, he'll also give us a sacrificial twig, but essentially we'll give him the letter, and we can't progress his storyline until we finish off the boss in this area. Then we'll have to double back, talk to him again, and then head back to where that blind woman was. But from this point, we'll head back to where that broken down wall is and be able to jump over to grab up that lost grace, and now we'll be heading down the backside of this castle itself. Now over here, it looks like it's a pretty steep fall, but lucky enough we won't be taking any damage from it. Bit of a hit to our stamina from that drop, but that's about the only thing that's going to be damaging us in that moment. Now, more than a few of those Neanderthal monkeys to deal with down here. And inside of this room over on our right, we'll have another one of those pickled turtlenecks. Another ghost to talk to as well, but he's not too beneficial for us. A little bit added to the lore maybe on that one. Now we will have one of those sludge creatures. These guys are devastating. And at this point, you may have noticed I changed weapons to the Game of Thrones sword, which is actually the weapon that we will be getting off of the boss at the end of this castle area itself. You notice I dropped down to getting naked. Well, since Vegeta dropped so many subs, you got to make it a bit more challenging, make a more interesting show. Let's just go for a little challenge run. We've got a level 1 kind of great sword with us. No armor to us. Let's see if we can make it through. Makes it a bit more challenging, but at the same time does make for some good entertainment, instead of just being able to blaze through the content with just an overpowered weapon and some of the best armor in the game. But over here on our right, we'll have another one of those crafting materials to grab up, and then we'll be able to jump over to the left, jumping off to the left again until we reach this rooftop over here. Now, there's going to be some some beams that we'll need to drop down onto. That will also have another one of those smithing stones, but at the very bottom there's going to be another one of those Neanderthal monkeys and a good bit of those rats. You know how frustrating they can be. So do be aware of that, and you can definitely tell. But it's also a whip in the back that I'd really enjoy to try and build out a PvP build for that. It would be quite funny to whip more than a few people. But off to the right of that room that we drop down in, there is going to be a lost grace. You'll want to grab that before we head over across this bridge or even into the boss fight itself. Otherwise, we got to go back all the way to the top just to come back all the way down that castle back end until we get to this point. That way, in case you do end up dying to some of these creatures over here, or possibly the boss itself, you'll be able to quickly get down here instead of having to go all the way down that long route. But as you'll notice, that level 1 weapon, it has good stagger ability, but not all the damage that greatsword had as it was fully leveled up. But from this point, we'll be able to jump over to the left side, you don't have to necessarily deal with the jellyfish, but back here is going to be that boss fight with the Misbegotten. Is that his name? I believe. You may have noticed this guy in more than a few of the other dungeons as a boss fight, but I believe this is one of the, I suppose, stronger ones, especially if this is one of the first times that you run into him. He is a bit quick at times, but you can stagger him quite well, and if you have the right weapon, you'll be able to stun lock him more than a few times, especially if you have the decent amount of stamina on you. But it does feel good to be able to come in naked with that level 1 weapon and still be able to utilize those tactics, be able to take him out, even though I do have quite a bit of strength and endurance and health. It does help out just a bit, but that's going to be the weapon that we'll be able to grab up off of him. A bit of an homage to the Game of Thrones, or throne itself, apparently, I should say. But as a sword instead. Now, apparently this weapon has been buffed in a recent patch, and one thing to note, somebody put some writing on top of that Lost Grace. If you come out a little bit, a few feet away from it, frustrating. I know I've had this moment with more than a few chests and certain items as well. I'll have another Somber Smithing Stone back there. But if you have one of those moments where you can't grab that Lost Grace, just kind of walk a few feet away from it. You should be able to touch it then. I believe maybe that's possibly something they patched in, or that's just that workaround for it. But that can be absolutely frustrating in those moments. But from this point, you want to head back to the front gate. Now, if you haven't went back and talked to, I didn't put the footage in here, but you want to go back and talk to that guy up top, the father of that woman that you gave the note to. That way he knows that he needs to head on back and see his daughter, since you've taken out the key, or taken out the Misbegotten boss fight, got the weapon that was heirloom to the castle. But from that point, over on our left-hand side, back before we hit the entrance, there will be another one of those golden seeds. Kind of losing my train of thought there. But from that point, we'll be able to head up over to this wall over here. But like I said before, you will want to head back to that guy and talk to him, just so he knows he needs to head back to his daughter. As we'll be coming back to that at the very end of this video. Now, from this point, we'll be able to head up over to the left, and we'll have another area that's fairly similar to one inside of the Lunaria Lakes, which is going to be a whole, pretty much every enemy in this area is going to be completely filled with that madness, that chaos fire. They can be quite frustrating, especially if that madness really builds up on top of you. I mean, the amount of times I've run through PvP and somebody's got a madness build that just completely stun locks you, that's frustrating right there. That's overpowered. But it can have the same effect with some of these enemies you may deal with in larger groups. But from that point, we'll head along the left edge until we hit this ailing village. We'll need to jump down to that, or jump down from that ledge over there after we clear out this entire top area over here. Now inside of this first building on our left will be a flame crescent wooden shield. If you don't have any mini shields by this point, that could be a big upgrade for some of those shield wielders. Now as we progress along along the left side, we'll have another Lost Grace to grab up over here. And if you'll notice, on our left side from that Lost Grace, we'll kind of head along the edge, and we'll be running into a church over here. Made sure to show the location on the map, just in case you got a bit lost in that moment. I know this area can be one of those that kind of blends in together. A lot of Limgrave does have that kind of effect to it. But inside of here, we're going to have more than a few of those rats to deal with. You'll notice that level 1 weapon really isn't dishing out all the damage as that greatsword, but we get it done. Over on our left-hand side, we will have another one of those chaos-type abilities or incantations, and another of the sacred tears, just to further increase the amount your flasks actually heal or give back mana. Now from that point, we'll head over to the right ledge, kind of go back towards where the Lost Grace is that we found earlier. And from that point, we'll keep riding along that ledge until we get to the point where we'll be able to jump down onto some of those tombstones hanging off to the right ledge. Now down here, there's going to be quite a bit of lightning striking the ground, similar to what I've seen in more than a few areas, but specifically one that I remember is going to be the consecrated snowfields. But we'll have a good bit of crafting material out here. One scarab to kill down here, which is going to give us another type of incantation from the holy side of things, I believe. Now, there's going to be more than a few bats down here now. I'm still using that level 1 weapon, and like I stated earlier on in the video, anything to do with flying against my type of melee build can be extremely frustrating, and they got the better of me on that one. Now, I did end up coming back and killing these guys, but on the right side, over to the left is where we're going to want to drop down. I tried dropping down from the right after I killed all those bats the first time, and it was not a pleasant ending for me. But we'll have a dungeon over here on that left side just below, and we'll need to jump down instead of taking the lift, as we'll have another smithing stone to grab up as we go down those kind of ledges along the side of the wall, and then grab up that lost grace. Would be a good idea to drop that lift down just in case you need to take that main exit out. Now inside of here, obviously, we'll have more than a few of those crystal miners, and you'll notice that level 1 weapon does... It requires a bit more beating on some of these enemies. Does make it a bit more irritating in some of these fights as well. A bit prolonging to them, but we still make fairly quick work out of some of these guys. Now down inside here, we're going to have more than a few of these Neanderthal monkeys to deal with. They can be increasingly frustrating if you've ever, or more than likely you've dealt with these guys more than a few times, so you know how irritating they can be at certain times. Had a bit of a glitch moment right there where it almost seems like he was just hanging by a thread from the ledge above somehow, but bit of a comical moment right there. But over on the right side of that wooden platform, we'll have another one of those golden runes, and just in front of this crystal miner, we'll have another smithing stone to grab up. Now from that point over to our right, cleared that area, and just underneath the wooden platform, another one of those smithing stones. 2 more of those crystal miners to deal with. They take quite a beating, especially from a low-level weapon. But I'll tell you what, that Game of Thrones swords does put in the work, and I'd like to level that up and see how well it can do as a strength build, considering you will need 60 strength in order to wield this, so it is quite the hefty grind just to be able to use it. But I believe I saw in one of the recent patches that it has been buffed by quite a bit. Over on the left-hand side, though, inside of that body, we'll have another golden rune. Inside of this chest, we'll also have a bit of flesh that we'll be able to consume. And just behind that shack itself, we will have another somber smithing stone to grab up, as well as another consumable on the body. Again, another one of those Limgrave moments where there's not too many illusionary walls within a lot of these dungeons themselves. But by this point, you'll have noticed I went back to the greatsword. I didn't want to make this any longer than it needed to be. Obviously, I wanted to make some enjoyable content, but at the same time, in some of these areas, we kind of needed to make some quick work out of these guys and not make it, or not cause it to drag on and possibly deal with a ton of deaths, essentially. But you'll notice there's more than a few of those smithing stones along the walls. Like I've said before, do check every one of those walls. I don't know if they could actually spawn in different locations, but there has been more than a few times where I have missed a couple of them, especially the regular smithing stones. They do blend in with the walls quite well at certain times. Now we'll have one of those stone Neanderthal monkeys, but he'll drop a very unique weapon, which is going to be the rusted anchor. I am quite interested to make a PvP build out of this. Let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see that. Hell, if nobody even says anything down in the comments about it, I'm still going to make it, and I'm going to make some content out of that, because it would just be quite comical to use that against somebody in Invasion or Duelist just to make a whole build out of it and try to make it to the best of my ability. But right outside of that, we'll be able to head on down. We'll have more than a few of those pesky flowers that are spitting out the poison over here to deal with. But we'll be, goodness, getting a little bit dry mouth right now. Hold on. But we'll need to head over along the right wall side, get past those flowers themselves. And over here on the right, we're going to be coming back to the location where we first got that lost grace in the beginning. There will be a couple of those monkeys to deal with. On the left-hand side, though, there will be a bit of string and some consumable or crafting material, I believe. Not exactly the most important items to grab up, but we'll need to start heading back over to the right, deal with a couple of those monkeys that keep spawning out of the brush, And you'll notice we'll be back at that Lost Grace that we picked up just a bit earlier. Now, just off to the left of that, along this right side wall over here, we'll need to head over down to this lower area, as there's going to be another, I believe this one's a cave, not a, cave dungeon. They're pretty much the same thing. Just the biggest difference is the one has a door and the other one's just an opening. But we'll be heading down inside of this dungeon cave, sometimes. And we'll also have a floor that will fall out with more than a few of those rats to deal with. So if you're just first time coming through here, first playthrough, do be aware of that. There's quite a few rats down here, and they can stun lock you, and that's a frustrating death to deal with. But lucky enough, we do have that Lost Grace at the very beginning. But we'll be heading back to see that chest that we fell right in front of a little bit later on. Now, you'll be a bit frustrated to see what's inside of that chest, and I'll let you guess what that's going to be, because we've had a moment like this before. But we're about to see right now, which is another pickled turtle's neck. It's very similar to the mushroom moment. They can be beneficial items, but at the same time, I hate to see a chest that just gives me a consumable item. I want loot. I want some type of new item to deal with. Some type of new weapon, something along the legendary. It's just a letdown moment. You get your hopes up thinking there's going to be some epic loot in there. And next thing you know, it's just something that you don't really use all that often. But inside of here, the boss is going to be another one of those larger bears. Goodness. No matter what level you are, these will always be one of the most frustrating beasts to fight inside of this game, right next to the Crucible Knight. Because that thing can stun lock you, and it deals a hefty amount of damage. And it will take a hefty amount of damage. Now, we will get a Spelldrake Talisman out of this one, which is going to further improve our defensibility against those spells that may be cast upon us. Not sure how much more that actually gives us in defense compared to the non-physical damage one, but I'd have to test that out at some later point. I'm not sure which one's better, but in the very beginning, this would be a great way to have that ready for that Rhea Lucaria that you'll be facing off with a little bit later in the Lunaria Lakes area. Just against all those sorcerers you'll be dealing with over there. That's why I say this area is pretty much one of those locations you want to get done before you face off with Maggot, or Hold Margit, I should say. Now, as we ride along this right ledge over here, more than a few of those monkeys to deal with. But over on our left, you'll notice as we progress down here, there's going to be some ruins over here with one of those bigger sorcerer type of monkey lord types, which actually, as soon as you defeat that guy, will also get a staff from him. But you'll notice all the monkeys around him actually cower in fear from you after you defeat their leader. Bit interesting, there was a note that you could buy or from one of the vendors that actually explains this in a way. It's kind of interesting that I feel like that's the only location that happens in, but it's funny to find that moment right there. But as we progress through these ruins, you'll notice there's one that's kind of encased, and that's where this smaller dungeon area is going to be that we'll be able to open up a chest down here. And inside of this chest, I believe we're getting different type of shield. This one's a bit interesting looking. It's a smaller shield, and you can force push it or kind of push out with the left trigger ability with it, cause some bleed damage with it. It may be one of those that could be better for somebody that has lower endurance. It may not weigh as much as some of those other larger shields. Perfect for some of those people starting out, just to have a decent shield to be working with that doesn't cause them to be fat rolling everywhere. But over into the backside, over to the left, we'll have another one of those whirlpools that we'll need to jump up on top of, as we'll need to use that in order to head over to the southwestern portion of Limgrave. Got to recite some of this stuff from memory, and when you're looking at it, you think you think everywhere you're looking is north. I mean, that's how I think for the most part. It always confuses me. I know. I think I've had that moment more than a few times inside of some of these videos where I think I'm heading north because that's just a direction I'm looking. But up to the actual north, there will actually be a church up here that we'll need to grab up the Lost Grace from, and there'll be another sacred tier over here. And over to the right, we're going to have another shield that we'll be able to pick up. Not sure with some of these shields. I know most people are looking for that 100% physical damage reduction on that. I don't believe any of these had that, but at the very beginning of the game, you've got more than a few shield options to work with at this certain location. But over here at the very back ledge off to the left, one of these pillars will be able to jump down on top of this and then be able to jump down over to the left and luckily not die from this fall. Now, essentially, you can jump down from that other end right there. I just noticed there was something down here, decided to take that leap of faith, and it worked out for me. So, by all means, you can keep riding along that cliffside with it facing your left side and be able to jump down without the worry of possibly dying from that fall right there. But we'll have a couple of items to grab up. There are going to be some consumables over there on the left. And then further down here, I don't believe we have any other items. Just another one of those moments where I had to leave this in to make sure that nobody got lost with the footage as we're going through the guide. But you'll notice it looks like you'll be able to jump down there. I make that another leap of faith right there, and it was a costly one, but lucky enough we were able to get back down here, jump up along this right side. Well, actually, you could jump down from this ledge area as well. That could work for you as well. We'll have a couple of wolves to deal with as we come up from that ledge. Now, from this point, we'll start heading along this right edge right over here, but we won't be jumping down all the way. We'll start heading over to the left to kind of come into the middle area, as this is going to be a bit of ground that's higher up from that. I can't even, it's another one of those portions where I want to say eastern side, but it's just our right side. But just underneath the cliff in front of us, we'll have another one of those dungeons to deal with. And inside of here, we will need a stone sword key in order to grab up one of these items behind here, which I believe is going to be, I can't remember specifically what this was. It may have been crafting material. Nope, it's going to be another one of those cookbooks. Going to be helpful for some of those people, especially that are using crafting. We have another one of those moments where I see one of these statues. I still, to this moment, have not seen any other statue other than the one inside of Lindale where you can gesture towards it and be able to unlock some type of secret. Do let me know down in the comments if you found any one of these statues that actually you can gesture to and be able to open them up, because, I know apparently it has happened in previous games with the Souls genre, but I have yet to find one inside of Elden Ring that actually unlocks anything secret. But down inside of here, we're going to have more than a few skeletons to deal with, and they can be the pesky ones, especially the bow and arrow ones. Just the simple fact that having to deal that one extra slash can be extremely frustrating. But underneath there, we'll have more than a few of these gloveworts to pick up inside of here. Another moment where somebody's trolling on the ground telling me I need to gesture towards a casket. Did not work, trust me. I tried so many of these gesture points. I read into these trolls way too much. The amount of times I've tried hitting some walls 50 times thinking it's going to open up. It never does. You just feel dumb at that point. But from that point, we'll have another one of those flame turrets to deal with. Do hit that, as we'll need to jump up on top of it in order to get to that next location just above it. Another one of those moments where I'm checking just about every wall, rolling into it, trying to see if there's any of those illusionary walls. Sadly enough, Limgrave doesn't have too many of them. If any, now that I think about it. I'm trying to remember one time, but didn't quite happen. Or from what I can recall. Now, from this point, after we get up on top of here, we'll be able to progress on forward. There's going to be a few more gloveworts, a little bit higher in level than some of the previous dungeons that we've been in. So if you're looking for some of those 2s, 3s, this could be some of those areas you want to double back to. But we'll also have the boss lever over here as well to unlock, but we'll need to double back as there was another room that we didn't head into as we got on top of that turret in order to progress forward, which will have another one of those gloveworts inside of it. And a couple more of the skeletons to deal with, along with one of those talking plates. I believe it's called a plate. I could be saying that wrong. Happens too many times with some of these Elden Ring guides. There's so many different names to call things. And a lot of times, me personally, I just don't even look at the name. I'm like, ooh, good loot. I know what it does. I look at the stats on it. If it's not beneficial, it's not beneficial. If it's not for my classes, I don't really look too much into it. It's something for a different day, for a different build. I just want to collect it all, then hit that respec point and really start playing with it from that point. Now inside of here, we'll have a bit of a faster moving character, one of those shade type enemies. Luckily, they're very squishy, and we'll get another summons out of this one once it's defeated. And he is easy to stagger, so even if you're not exactly the highest level, don't have the strongest weapon out there, more than likely you'll be able to take this guy down without any worries. Pretty much one of the easiest or easier boss fights that you'll find in the game because they are so squishy. Now up on top, over to the left, we'll find another one of those minor ERDTREEs, which means we're going to have another one of those ERDTREE champions. And since this is in a lower difficulty area, this ERDTREE will not be spitting out some of that scarlet rot or poison, and he will be a bit easier to take down. Now from that, we will be getting some of those crystal tears, and we'll be showing where to get that wondrous flask in the part 2. Try to make sure to have that one up just either the night after the morning that this is uploaded, and also have the part 2, or have the full Limgrave guide up by that point. But from that point of that ERDTREE, we'll start heading along the left side of the edge over here. There'll be a couple of bats that we'll need to deal with, and there's also going to be one of those trying to remember, it's a broken down tower over here. You could try to argue that it's a castle, but it's not exactly. But as we progress down here, you'll start to notice we'll have a little bit of a dip down, and that's going to be that broken down tower off in the distance. Goodness. We'll need to jump down from over on the left side. Now, another one of those moments where, there's one more item that we can grab up over here, which is going to be a little bit of that flesh that I believe is used for crafting material. But over on our left, we'll be able to jump down after we deal with some of these pesky bats. I keep forgetting about them. I do a little bit of double backing right here. Another one of those moments where, just trying to make sure everybody's able to follow along as easily as possible with as few cuts as possible. Now over here on the right, we will have another couple of those land squids, and interestingly enough, there is a what looks like a scarab sitting there that you would think would give us an item, but it's actually a scarab that's just invisible. That's a health globe scarab. Not exactly, not something you definitely have to go for, but I had to know whether or not it was something worthwhile, and it did take a couple of hits to finally break this thing. But essentially, it's just going to be one that gives us that health globe effect. Or give us more health pots, or refill, I should say. Goodness, bit lost on the words right there. But as we go along that left edge over here, we'll be running up a blonde vagabond. Greatly appreciate the follow. We'll also have a spot that we can jump down onto, which will have one of those guys sitting in the chairs. That'll give us a bit of, I believe that was crafting material. Over to the right, just in front of this broken down tower, we'll also have another one of those crafting materials, which is going to be that dragon's fly head. Now, we will have a knight to deal with over here, but luckily, with that greatsword, we're making quick work out of him. Now, over in this tower, there's going to be a chest at the top that will teleport you over to the Lindell capital area. I need to make sure that I say that before we even get close to touching that chest, because as soon as we get there, we're going to essentially have to come back to that lost grace at that church at the other end of where we were just from. Now, sadly enough, this isn't something that immediately portals you to Limgrave and you have access to the entire city. You'll be at a taller portion above the area that is like a copy of that of the round table itself inside of Lindell. And you'll face off with a golem, or stone giant golem over here. Iron giant, I should say. Now, if you're just coming into this in your first playthrough and you still haven't upgraded too much, I would highly suggest not actually going for this guy. You may be able to jump over here and get this talisman over here that will slowly restore your health over time as you wear that talisman. But I'd argue you may be just better off running from that thing, grabbing the talisman, and then teleporting back to that lost grace at that church location on the other end of where we were. Now, from this point, we'll be heading back over to where that broken down tower is, and then be heading over to the right of where that location is. Just past that minor ERDTREE again. And then we'll be getting down into the last portion, or last area that we'll be covering in this part 1 of the Limgrave guide. Now, just down here, over to the right, past that land squid over there, we're going to have more than a few of these broken down structures, and a good bit of those Lindale soldiers over here. Do be mindful of that, and a couple of bats that like to throw the most irritating things in combination at some moments. Now over to the left, we'll be able to head over all the way until there's this graveyard. Like I said before, goodness, those bats can be extremely frustrating. Just watching that again, it's got my blood pressure up. But over here on the left side of that cliff face, just underneath where that broken down tower is, goodness, tongue twisted again. We've got a graveyard with more than a few of those golden runes. Could be extremely beneficial for some of those people that are just starting out their first playthrough as well. But from that point, we'll start heading along the left edge over here, and we'll be coming upon a beach down below, which is going to be pretty much covered with a lot of those zombie creatures. They'll be all over the place. Not really necessary for you to actually go after all of them, but over on our right side, we will have a Lost Grace and a vendor over here. And at this specific vendor, we will be able to get that hip lantern. I would highly suggest buying that up from him, as well as some of that Lost Ashes of War, the smithing stones, and the stone sword keys, as we'll need plenty of those later on in order to further progress our ability to gain some of that loot and just gain power as we progress through. Now over on our left-hand side, this is where the large portion of those zombies are going to be. There will be one golden rune just next to that woodpile that seems like it would be a bonfire on the beach. And then from that point, we'll head over to the right. There'll be another church up on top that'll give us another one of those sacred tears, as well as another Lost Grace that we'll be able to grab up from this location. Now from that point, we'll need to head out towards the right of the church itself, as there's going to be the Waypoint ruins over here. If you've already seen the SELLEN questline, or the guide from my SELLEN questline, this is going to be one of the locations where you'll need to, you'll need to come back to along with that, or along the side quest line of SELLEN's side quest line. Goodness, a bit confusing right there, but essentially this is where another meeting point with SELLEN will be, as well as another sorcery that we'll be able to grab up down here. Do be sure not to hit her down here. That is going to cause you to have some aggro with SELLEN, stop you from progressing the side quest line with SELLEN, and you'll have to use a Celestial Dew in order to get back in good favor with her. So in order to avoid all that problematic experience, do avoid hitting her on the wall. She won't say much to you. She'll just be in agonizing pain. But I'll leave the secret as to why she's down there for any of those people that are going to further progress to it later on. No spoilers on this end. But just over to the right, you'll notice there's a giant turtle with a bill underneath it. We'll need to head off all of the... it just looks like smashed skeletons on the side of it to me, but you'll need to hit those off in order to get them to sit down. This is where we'll be able to replicate some of those remembrances from some of the boss fights in order to get duplicate items out of the finger lady. But from that point, heading over to the right wall side, we'll be able to head up along that side and then grab up our next Lost Grace location. And from this location, we'll be able to head over to the left, and you'll notice there's a couple of those broken down structures. We'll need to be able to get up on top of a couple of these. But before we head up on top of those, over to our left, just in front of that church location that we grabbed that Lost Grace from, just over to the right, there's going to be a small little ledge that we'll be able to jump down into and be able to dive into one of these cave dungeons, which is going to be the Tombsward Comb. I think I said that wrong, but this is going to be another cave dungeon. It may have said cave. I may have misspoken right there. But inside of here, we're going to have more than a few poison enemies to deal with, as well as a good bit of poison that we'll need to walk through. So do be aware of that. Be sure to have those health pots at full, and do be mindful of your health. As you'll notice, I didn't keep an eye on it yet again. Another one of those moments where, you kind of get distracted. You think you're invincible because you're in New Game Plus, but no matter what, Elden Ring's going to get the better of you at some point, one way or the other, with one trick or another. But from that point, we'll have another entrance that we'll find just beyond them. More than a few flowers to deal with, and funny enough, the boss fight inside of this area is going to be one of those giant flowers. So do be ready for that. There is going to be a lot of poison in there. If you don't have much resistance, or you possibly don't have a larger health bar, this may be something that you might want to come back to later as soon as you get some type of consumable that can take away that poison damage, or if you don't have enough of those flasks to keep up with that poison damage rotting away at you. That could be something to look into. But from this point, we'll actually get a decent melee medallion out of this that further increases our maximum stamina. Could be extremely useful for some of those people at the very beginning going with that melee build or even shield and sword build. But from that point, we'll be heading over to the right, and just behind that, off down left of the church itself, is going to be another Everjail. Now, funny enough, the first time I fought this guy when I had the Bloodhound Fang, this was an extremely easy boss fight, but this is one of those moments that does kind of showcase the weakness of this greatsword. It can be a slow swinger, so if you have some of those faster enemy types coming in front of you, this is one of those moments where it can not exactly be the greatest weapon, still deals some serious damage, but you'll notice, I mean, he's pretty much one shot for way too long right there, and it took me quite a bit of time just to close in and get that last hit. But we'll be getting a talisman that further increases 4 of our different stats by 3, and then also decreasing our maximum, or increasing the amount of damage we take, I believe. But just north of that, I believe, is going to be another one of those ruins that we'll need to go down into, and there's going to be a couple of those crossbow guys inside of there. You know how devastating they can be. But inside of here, we'll get the winged scythe, which does cause blood loss. I believe this is another weapon that's been increased in power when it comes to holy builds, actually. Some of those holy incantations or ashes of war, I believe, can be equipped with that, and it can be extremely powerful from that, since it does amplify its damage from base builds. And on top of the broken down structure, like I said before, we'll need to get up on top of that, and that's where we'll find another one of those scarabs. But that is going to be the Limgrave area. This last point is where we're going to go ahead and talk with the guy that we talked at the castle with. He's going to be back with his daughter over here on the left if you went back to talk to him already. But that's going to be the Limgrave guide part 1, guys. Hopefully this has helped you out. Hopefully you've uncovered a few things that you may have missed, possibly. Maybe you found everything, and this is just one of those once-overs that helps you to solidify that you haven't missed much in this area, and you're on your way to being that completionist just like me. But hopefully you enjoyed this. If you'd like to see some of this content live, hit that link down in the description. Follow me over at Twitch, streaming daily. Sometimes I may be a bit off on certain days, considering some of these Limgrave guys. Some of these guys for Elden Ring can take some extensive amount of time, but lucky enough, we've only got 2 more areas to cover, so the future content won't take as much time, and I'll be able to stream a bit more instead of having to take off days just to get some of these guides done. But hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully it's something that's benefited you, and if you'd like to see more of this Elden Ring content, obviously hit that subscription button. But on that note, hope you've enjoyed it, and have a good one.